Okay, so we are on page 203. Make sure you are there as well. It's problem 5. And you just learned about something called point-slope form in the last problem. And now this time we are learning about something called standard form. And standard form is written just like it looks right here. And for this one, they give you a situation. So there's tickets for a school play. It's $5 for students and $8 for adults. On opening night, they made $1,600. So they give you this equation right here. And number 1 says explain what each term of the equation represents in the problem situation. So I'm not going to write it down, but I expect you to be writing it down as I'm talking about it. So your 5x represents the cost of the student tickets multiplied by the number of student tickets sold. And your 8y is the cost of an adult ticket, because it's $8, multiplied by however many they sold. And then your 1,600 represents the total that was collected in ticket sales on opening night. So after you've written that down, go ahead and flip the page. And we're not going to do number 2, so you can put a little X through it if you want. Number 3 says calculate the x-intercept and the y-intercept of the equation. So I'm going to go ahead and write the equation down. So it's 5x plus 8y equals 1,600. And I'm going to write it twice because we're going to need it for the x-intercept and the y-intercept. So if I am trying to solve for my x-intercept, I'm going to go ahead and plug a 0 in for my y. So I'll just write x above it because we're looking for our x-intercept. So instead of a y here, I'm going to plug in a 0. So it'll be 0 times my 8, and then I'm going to bring everything else down. So 0 times 8 is obviously 0. That would go away. And then you would have 5x equaling 1,600. You want to get x alone, so we're going to divide both sides by 5. And if we did that, x would equal 320. So if we are finding our x-intercept, you need to write it as a point. So it would be 320, and then our y would be 0, which makes sense because we plugged in a 0 for it. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the same thing over here for our y. So we're going to plug a 0 in for our x, so it would be 5 times 0 plus my 8y equaling 1,600. So this is going to go away, and I'm going to be left with 8y equals 1,600. I want to get my y alone. Currently 8 and y are being multiplied, so I'm going to divide both sides by 8, and I would get that y is 200. And again, I want to write that as a point. And this is your y-intercept, which you should know by now means that it's going to be written as 0, 200. So that is how you find your x and your y-intercept. So if I'm looking for my x-intercept, I plug a 0 in for my y. And if I'm looking for my y-intercept, I plug a 0 in for x. And then number 4 says, what are the meanings of the x and y-intercept? Again, I'm not going to write it down, but you need to make sure that you're writing it in your book. So the x-intercept means that if 320 students' tickets were sold and no adults' tickets were sold, they would make 1,600. And the y-intercept means that if 200 adult tickets were sold and no student tickets were sold, they would also make 1,600. So the next thing that we're going to do on this page over here is we're going to graph this line. So we need to figure out where to plot our points, and we have these 2 points from over here, so 320 and 0. So if I'm at 320 on my x-axis and I'm at 0 on my y, it's right here. And then similar thing if I'm at 0, 200, so if I'm at 0 for my x and I'm at 200 right here, it would be right there. So see how that is my x-intercept, it is where my line is going to intersect with my x-axis, and it's also my y-intercept, which you're a little bit more familiar with. And then you're going to just connect your dots. So that would be how you'd graph it. Pretty simple. Then next, on number 6, it says, what is the slope of the line? Well, we know the equation y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And we have the points 320 and 0. And we also have the point 0, 200. So we can just, again, pick our x and our y, our x and our y. We'll make these our 1s, these are 2s, and we're going to plug it in. So 200 minus 0 on top, and then on the bottom it would be 0 minus 320. So on the top we're going to get 200, and on the bottom we're going to get negative 320. If we reduce this, it's going to be a negative 5 over 8. And notice that I put my negative sign on the top. If you put it on the bottom, that's fine. If you put it on the outside, that's fine. Number 7 says, what does the slope mean in this problem situation? Well, we know that it's negative 5/8, and it represents the fact that the number of adult tickets sold decreases by 5 for every 8 student tickets sold. So again, make sure you have that written down. After you write that down, flip to the next page. Our last problem looks a little rough because I have Sharpies showing through, but it says if 100 student tickets were sold, how many adult tickets were sold? So if you had 100 student tickets, you're going to plug that in for your x, because if you remember, our x represents our student ticket. So we have the equation 5x plus 8y equaling 1,600. And we're going to take that 100 and plug it in for our x, so it would be 5 times 100 plus 8y equaling 1,600. And we're going to solve for our y. So if we multiply here, 5 times 100 is 500, plus 8y equals 1,600. Subtract 500 from both sides. That cancels. Now we have 8y equaling 1,100. And we want to get our y alone, so we have to divide by 8. What we do to one side, we do to the other, and we end up getting y equals 137.5.